Good to see you all. Not that I can really see you. Back in the day when I first started streaming, when streaming wasn't so popular, some people used to think that I could see them, and so they would sit there, dressed and looking proper because they thought they could be seen. I thought that was so sweet. Like, yeah, no, I can't see you. But now I think everyone gets that you can't be seen. Well, maybe not everyone. Okay, so we shall begin with the talk. It is called Breaking the Spell of Thought Illusions to Find Happiness. Yeah, that's a very intense title. But we shall begin. So first of all, before we begin, I want to give a disclaimer that this isn't therapy. This isn't about improving your life as such, working out how to have a better life or live a better life. This subject is non-duality. It's speaking about that which is beyond life, that which is beyond your mind and your thoughts. Yeah. So if you're doing this to make your life better, that's okay, but it's just recognizing this isn't actually about the apparent flow of things. So in the title, I say, I think how to become happy and to be happy. But we have to define what happiness is. Normally, happiness is somebody that's happy with their life. I will talk more about that. So non-duality is a phenomenal subject. I suspect originally it was in all religions and philosophies, but it kind of got very diluted in a lot of Western thinking and spiritual practice. But in the East, it carried on thriving. And non-duality is kind of you could say more of the essence of, say, the Bhagavad Gita or the Buddha's teachings. It's not so much about practicing and what you do and how you get there. It's more pointing directly to that which you are. So in Indian systems, it would be called jnana yoga, which is wisdom yoga. So rather than doing acrobatics of the body, we're doing acrobatics with wisdom, with thought, with idea. Yeah. But it's kind of, emerged out of the East and come into the West. And then, like every culture, when it mixes, there's been a merging of lots of different things. And a lot of Western teachers speak about therapy and human development and non-duality. And I'm not opposed to that. I think it's beautiful. But I tend to just point more to non-duality. In the past, I worked more with the person. And you can find older videos talking about chakras and working with feelings and emotions and thoughts. But now I've gone back to more just pointing to non-duality. But I'm really not opposed to working on yourself. And on my website, there's lots of different recommendations of things that you can do if you find yourself in a lot of mental suffering or physical suffering, or you just don't feel so good in yourself. There's so many things that can improve that. Yes. So I forgot what the title is. Hang on, just let me have a look again. Breaking the Spell of Thought Illusion to Find Happiness. breaking the spell. It's so amazing the way that we compile words together in order to make meaning. So break the spell. So spell, is associated with witches. It's associated with magic, potions. You put a spell on someone. That's also spelling. You can also spell a word. But the spell is kind of in the way that it's meant here is where you kind of get hypnotized by something. So a witch's spell could be a love potion. And then you drink a potion or something, and then you're in love with somebody that you wouldn't have been in love with before. So what this title is kind of implying is that you've been hypnotized by your thoughts. But thoughts are such a phenomenal thing, because what are thoughts and where do they come from? And whose are they? Because thoughts to us are such a personal thing, because we feel like we are somebody inside the head kind of talking to ourselves. And we're thinking about life, we're thinking about what to do, we're thinking about ourselves. And it feels such a personal thing. Where do thoughts come from? And where do words come from? So it's such an amazing phenomena that humans think and have this kind of private thinking world and believe that it is their own. When I was younger, before awakenings, I remember believing that in order to experience, I had to think about something. And I believed that. I had to be able to name something in order for it to be. And I had to tell myself about an experience in order for it to be. And I didn't realize, I think, how existential that was. Then as I got into non-duality, I realized that I was prior to thoughts. Who I truly was prior to thoughts. And in order to experience, I didn't need to think. But when we're identified, and most people in this society are having such a private, intimate relationship with their thinking world, that to them it's the whole reality and it's their truth. And that's hard to imagine what that means, but it's their truth. They truly believe that they are a daughter or a mother or a father, or that they're a human being, that they are French or German or Irish. They truly believe that to be their reality. That is fact. That is fact. That is the way it is. That person is bad, I'm good. The wall is white, the sky is blue, the tree is green, the tree is growing. Evolution exists, God doesn't exist, and all of this is real because it's in me and I'm thinking it. And so this is what I call spellbound. Humans are spellbound by thought, and they can't imagine a world outside of thought because every imagination is thought. So non-duality is pointing to something which is beyond thought. The most intimate sense of being. and perception. So prior to thought, prior to everything, is perception and the sense of being. So there can be an experiencing of this moment without thought, without knowing who you are, without knowing where you are, without knowing if you're good or bad, what you've done or not done. The whole life, everything you know in thought can be forgotten, and there is still an empty looking, or pure consciousness, big consciousness, however we call it, and this intimate sense of being. Those people that regularly watch me, I'm going to start changing my terminology as an effect of studying Nisargadatta Maharaj in my book clubs and Ramana and Papaji, because I was using amness and I am as this intimate sense of being. And I was using it as the feeling of I am that arrives with the person. And I noticed that they differentiate between being and then the I am is an experience. And so I'm going to change to their way of speaking because it makes more sense, because so many more teachers teach like that and they teach like that. So it makes more sense that I move. And it maybe creates more clarity because I was kind of using the I am as the most intimate sense of being and the experience of I am, the first initial experience of I am. I kind of like just caught them together because in the end, everything comes together. So these definitions aren't so important, but when you're speaking, there needs to be a pulling out of things to give clarity. But in the end, there is no feeling of I am. There is the sense of existence and then the empty looking. And then the I am, prior to I am something, kind of merges into that, you know. You don't really have all these different things. But I now understand the way in which Nisargadatta is using it. So I'm just going to adjust that slightly. But maybe you don't even notice because all these things are so hard to talk about. So precise and non-precise. Yeah. So the initial thought that comes up is I am, I exist. So there's a sense of being, and then out of that sense of being comes this I exist, the initial thought. It feels strange to call that thought because I've for so many years used this in different contexts. But yeah, so the I am comes up as the initial thought, and that doesn't have to go. That's not identification as such, that's a practicality that's needed with the body. So there's this feeling of I exist. And then what happens is I am a name, I am a body starts. And as soon as this starts, seeking begins. So the initial I am is part of functioning, but then the I am gets attached to thoughts. So rather than just being I am and I'm existing, like a feeling and thought of existing, it then attaches to ideas. And it tries to become these ideas. It's like there is an energy that wants the I am to incarnate as something. And then this is seeking. So I am a body, I am a name, and then the using of the movement towards pleasure and the avoidance of pain in order to carry on identifying. So I am good, which is a pleasurable thought. I am bad, which is a painful one. So I don't want to be bad. And this is all creating a you. When there's just the initial thought, I am, then you're infinite. You're not anything, you just are. You're in innocence. When you go beyond the I am, just to the pure being, then there's like absolute innocence, but maybe there's that samadhi, there's no ability to move the body. But when you're in this I am, the initial thought, there's infinite possibilities, but the identification wants to become something. So it wants to be all pleasurable things. So I'm good, I'm better than everyone else, I'm beautiful, I'm special, I'm funny, I'm rich, I'm successful. I mean, obviously it can't be rich as a young child, but maybe identifies with the parents' money. My parents are successful. My parents are great people. So it wants to be all these grand things to be loved. It's very simple in a way. And it wants to be loved because as soon as it's begun to be something, it feels an absence of love. And so therefore, the game of the person will always be to attempt to get love from its identifications. I am better than you, and there's a hope that there will be love there. I won that game, and there's a hope there'll be love there. Not a conscious hope, but a bodily, visceral sensation of trying to be loved. And then this is suffering. This is what the human does, and this is the life of suffering. It's like trying to catch water in a net. The person is trying to become more and more in order to return to its initial sense of love when it just was. So it identifies with form, and then it seeks in form, it seeks in pleasurable things to try to get back to the formless. And it never can. And that's what most humans are doing. And the seeking creates identity. I'm good, I'm richer than, I'm better than, I'm a doctor, or I'm a cleaner, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a writer, I'm successful, I'm not successful. All of these things it identifies with create an identity. And then that story inside the head of you is always trying to maintain itself and then gives the experience of a center, of a soul, of a person living inside the body. And it's an impossible game because the person wants to avoid pain and get to pleasure. And it's impossible because inevitably these bodies are going to fail. As they age, they will get more and more pain. They will be less and less beautiful, less and less capable. The mind won't work as well. Be more dependent. So inevitably this game is going to fail. But the human person, the identified person, is in complete denial of that and trying its best to keep that away and stay with this positive idea. But it creates immense stress. It creates burnout, immense suffering, arguments, disharmony, personality disorders. It creates all types of issues. Most probably a lot of mental illness stem from it, because the seeking overstimulates the nervous system. Then the nervous system creates issues with the hormonal system, and then the hormonal system creates issues with the chemicals like serotonin. So most probably also creates mental illness, but there can also be mental illness which is genetic. It doesn't necessarily have to be from seeking. Yeah. And it creates this very greedy mentality. The person is like a hungry ghost. Like in Buddhism, they have this image of this ghost with a very small mouth and a massive stomach. And it's like the human is like trying to stuff its face to fill this huge stomach, but it just can't get enough food down. So it's like constantly eating all day and all night. And then we get issues with consuming too much, with waste, not caring about the people around us, losing empathy, compassion. So non-duality, the goal is to discover what you are prior to identification. This is a magical, mysterious journey. It really is. To discover what you were prior to being someone, prior to your name, prior to what other people tell you you are, prior to your country. I am French, I am English. Prior to your intelligence, prior to your capabilities. If you're a period in your life where you've got lots of pleasure, maybe that's not so interesting. But if you've got more pain, then maybe that's super interesting. The number one most important, I can't say that enough, quality to have is the desire to know yourself beyond form. Otherwise, it's just another seeking pattern. It's another, I mean, you could call that seeking, but it's like the ultimate seeking. But it's, if you're using this to try to be better than other people, which I come across a lot, like they discover this and then suddenly like, oh my goodness, I'm God, I am everyone. And then they are using it to try to be better than everyone again. You know, so the most important quality that I see, although please know that because this life is of infinite possibilities, this can always be contradicted. But most of the time, there needs to be this quality, but it could always be contradicted. That's the nature of this reality. But most of the time, the number one quality, so 99.9999999% of the time, is the desire to know yourself. And in order to that desire to arise, you have to really realize that life doesn't work. The premise of hunting pleasure and avoiding pain doesn't work. You're never going to get there. You're never going to get enough money. You're never going to get enough kids. You're never going to get enough lovers. You're never going to have enough sex. It's never going to work. So that has to be seen. And when that's seen, really deeply seen, then there will be the true desire to know yourself beyond seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. This will be the true seeking, the initial seeking to find out yourself. And then when that's there, then it's a home run. But a lot of people think that that's what they want, but they don't really want. Really what they want is to control their partner through this teaching, or to have a better partner, or to just have a bit of an easier life, or to overcome a burnout, or because it's too stressful, your current life. But there are the select few, most of the people that I'm speaking to, that really, truly want this. And then when it's truly wanted, then that's what will appear. That true seeking, and that's what will appear. And that's that you can begin to go on to the teaching of law of attraction. Because how does this world work? You know, and you might notice that it works predominantly through desire. So what you desire will appear. But there's always exceptions. You don't want to get too fixated on that. That's a very complicated subject, because people have to find that out for themselves. They have to realize that sometimes they're desiring bad things. And it doesn't mean if bad things happen, it's because you desired it. It doesn't quite work like that. So you have to really explore yourself and go in to understand these teachings. And then I would just also give a disclaimer that, you know, once this is seen, is then the discovery that there was nobody ever with desire. There was nobody ever seeking this. There was nobody ever acting independently. There was nobody really with karma. And when we talk about this, we have to kind of jump around these different levels, which makes it very confusing. That's why it's called jnana yoga, the acrobatics of the mind. So if you imagine physical yoga, like bending and all these positions, like the ultimate yoga is jnana of the mind. The mind becomes so flexible, it holds on to nothing. There is no place it can sit that doesn't get irate that I'm not speaking all extreme non-duality, or it doesn't get irate when I do speak extreme non-duality. It doesn't get irate when there is contradictions. It sees everything for what it is. Infinite possibilities. Yes. Let's see what the second part of the breaking the spell of thought illusion to find happiness. Yeah. So happiness is a very deceptive word, and it's maybe not the best word. Some teachers use it, like Rupert Spira uses happiness. A lot of teachers from India would use bliss. Sat Chit Ananda. Rupert Spira would say that bliss is a misinterpretation. I would happily call it bliss, but I didn't want to name the talk and find true bliss. Happiness is more westernized. So the nature of who you are is absolute bliss. When there is a connection with who you are, what is experienced in the person is bliss. Very blissful. Sat Chit Ananda. And that's important to register, but it's not a goal. Bliss also comes and goes. So there's times where there has to be more character there, has to be more involvement in life, and when there is, there will be less bliss. And when there is less things, less complexities, then there can be more of a disappearance of everything, the whole entire world, and then there will be max bliss. That's what's called samadhi, but you can't function from max non-identification. You can't be in samadhi all the time. It's an experience that comes and goes. But what can happen is there can be a movement from identifying with form back to that which is watching, the empty looking, and pure beingness. So that you no longer feel like somebody or something. Your looking is vast and empty. You could say it's no thing and all things. Another way to put it is you're standing in the precipice between nothing and everything, between the unmanifest and manifested. And that would be the connection to the pure beingness and the empty looking. And that's what I would maybe call awakening. Everybody has different terminologies and different markers as to where you are and what's awakening or what's enlightenment. But to me, that would be awakening. When there is an energetic shift and it's kind of like a permanent movement out of being a contracted center inside of the body to being the pure consciousness and pure being. And that isn't the end of human conditions, or it wasn't for me. So my person then, I feel what happens is then is my person aligns more and more with that. And this is why I think you'll see different teachers at different places. So if you look at someone like Ananda Maya, she was so much in the unmanifest, and the character had so little desire left. So there was like her personality was very expanded. Her personality was very in line with who she truly is. Whereas when I read her, I feel like my personality has more issues than her. So it's not as in line with that stillness of what I am. But then when I read other teachers, I feel the other way as well. Like I'm not trying to put myself down or put myself up. But when I read Ananda Maya, I feel like deeply recognize what she's talking about, but that my character isn't as expanded as hers or evolved as hers. So I think that for an example, what would be an example? She would say that her character has absolutely no fear, whereas I don't know what she means by that. She's not alive, whereas I know that this character still experiences fear. And I don't have a seeking or a goal to get rid of that fear, but I can see naturally that whatever fears or whatever is happening in the personality, there's always this urge to expand it, whatever comes up, to see the illusion of it and expand it. Yeah. There's no sticking point. And I don't see a goal, like I don't see an end for the person, or a beginning. Yeah. But one thing I do recognize, like very strongly recognize with someone like Ananda Mayi that speaks is, and with Nisargadatta Maharaj, is this bliss that's ever present. And that's even there in the fear. That's there in everything. And it comes and goes in intensity, but it's when you're connected to the emptiness of what you are, there is this natural well-being, this bliss, this love that's here. This okayness with everything. It's beautiful.